What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast. This is going to be an awesome episode. If you want to increase your sales, you're looking for your relationship to increase and just your business overall, the guest I'm about to bring on, he's so bright, and yet every approach is so much common sense that is applied. It absolutely is going to help you in every area of life. I'm excited for you to hear Michael Cinquino, who is the CEO of SoHo Creative Studio, who help brands turn their expertise into high-impact video and podcast content that builds trust and drives growth. He's also the creator of Drop the Act, a communication philosophy and upcoming book helping leaders connect with real presence and clarity. With 20 plus years in performance, coaching, and storytelling, Michael teaches business communication at UNH and hosts the Performance Edge podcast. Well, Michael, brother, we were already talking off air, and I said, wait, stop. This is gold, man. We got to share this with the world. How are you? You always bring this smile and this dynamic personality. It makes my day better, but how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. It's the second time we've got to connect like this, and I feel like it just gets better every time. So it's wonderful to be here. I'm doing great, busy in a good way. Lots of stuff going on. So no complaints at all, man. Just happy to be here with you.
Well, I'm happy as well. I wrote down a couple things that I was like, wait, we got to shut up because I want to record this. And what you and I were talking about was just business. And we were talking about this idea that just because you created something before, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. And I was just laying on the sword saying, look, man, I knew what I was doing at these other three companies. I woke up one day with Let's Go Win. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I got so many things going, and some are good. Some are like, it's a complete not waste of time. That's not true. It's just maybe not what I thought it was going to be. And I thought you had such a profound answer. So I'm not going to regurgitate. What are your thoughts when I was talking about that? Because you went and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so good.
I think, what was it about context mattering? And yeah, so context always matters. And how to, 37 signals is the example I gave. And those guys were asked, how do you start a business? What's your advice? They're like, we don't know. They're like, wait, you started this huge successful company. They're like, yeah, 10 years ago. They're like, we don't have any experience recently in starting a business. So for us, if you're asking us how to start a business, we would direct you to somebody that started a business maybe 6 months ago, not us. And I think one of the ways we can get tripped up as human beings is to try to replicate someone else's how-to. And I think we forget that they were who they were at that time, in that context, in that space, with those market needs. And the amount of things that had to come together and intersect at that time will never happen again. And to try to recreate something from a different time and space, I think more often than not is a recipe for failure. So then the question is, well, what can you do? And I think it's more important in what you embody. Do you embody courage? Do you embody persistence? Do you embody curiosity? Do you embody grit and all these things? And I think especially at a time where, the AI is ramping up and agentic AI and all this stuff, I think the human qualities and the soft skills are the ones that are really going to matter. And are you able to be creative? Are you able to think outside the box? Are you able to be persistent and consistent in what you're doing? Because so much is changing so quickly. And anybody who says they know what's going on is either marketing or lying. Everybody's just picking their experiment for the next 6 months. Who knows? Someone writes a piece of software. And the thing about the technologies now, the growth is just, it's on this very, very rapid upward curve. And it's going faster, and the velocity is ever increasing. So the idea that you're going to keep up somehow, I'll finish with this example. There was a group of 25 Fortune 70 CIOs that I used to work with through an organization called Kaios. And they used to meet twice a year. Traditionally, this is a 20-year-old organization. And the pacing of twice a year to come together in a room to talk for 3 days on whatever the biggest problems in tech were at companies like Boeing and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Disney, huge multinationals. that pacing was fine. Then they started to realize this pacing is not working. By the time we leave the room a couple months in, everything has changed. So the what do you call the cadence of the meetings had to pick up so they could keep up, because the point of those meetings were to stay forward thinking. But to leave forward thinking space for 6 months and come back to it just didn't work. They had to come back to it sooner and sooner. So this is a roundabout way of saying the idea that you're going to look at someone else's how to and apply it to your context, it's just not going to work. And I'll say one more thing. As a therapist in training, we never give advice, ever, 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 ever. If you're my client, you're like, Michael, what should I do? I'm like, that's for you to decide. The reason being is that it is impossible for me to get the full context of what's going on for you.
Mm.
It's impossible. It cannot happen. Even if you want to try to make sure that I'm getting the full context, you, because you're a human being, JM, are going to leave things out, not because you want to. That's just what human beings do. So if I give you advice, I'm giving you advice based on a sliver of the total context, right? And of course, if it doesn't work out, who are you going to blame? And it's more likely not going to work out. So my job is to guide you to your own decisions and let you make your own decisions. And I think the mindset that folks can maybe think about going forward is to stop trying to take some how-to from someone that did a startup 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a year ago, and start to think about how can I embody these qualities that are going to allow me to be a better business owner, a better startup founder.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there for sure. And we're going to get to, again, soft skills would be the term, although I hate that term because I think they're like super, super important. I don't want people to be like, I don't want those soft. Yes, you need those, right?
Do you know where the term soft skills was born?
No, I'm now fascinated. Where?
Let me tell you, the U.S. Army. And the U.S. Army, I forget exactly when, but they did a study on, I believe, artillery officers. Okay. And they were looking at, who are the best officers with their artillery. Now, I'm a Navy guy. Forgive me, Army folks, divisions, platoons, so on. I don't know the verbiage, but I do know that they were looking at, how can we make these artillery teams better at what they're doing? And they thought that it was the hard skills, working with the hard machines, like working with actual physical things. And what they learned was the divisions or teams that were doing better, that leader had better soft skills, better communication skills. So that's where the term soft skills was born. Hard meaning physical, hard, steel, bombs and stuff like that. Soft meaning not the opposite of that. Now I'm with you though, and I'll stop here, is that I think they're heroic virtues and not soft skills at all. I think they're absolutely, key for everything. And they're not like, oh, well, we can learn real skills and there's like soft skills. And you know what? The irony here is because technology is taking over so many of these other skills, these are actually more important than your tech skills because the machines can do it.
Well, that's what I think is our differentiator. I really do. And I'm curious with everything that you're doing at SoHo Creative with AI, because I want to go several places here, but I'll focus in. We're talking about AI. We're talking about how fast it's moving. I mean, look, I've seen videos that are like, the world is going to collapse because of what we're creating. I've seen others that are like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and everything in between. Fall wherever you may, people, but I would be curious with everything we just said, following those how-to videos, which is really fascinating if you think about it, because YouTube was kind of created on, if you need, just go there, you can find it. And yet, to your point, gosh, that's kind of archaic almost. It's almost already behind because how fast it's moving. So how are you using AI specifically for you? Are you using it on a daily basis within your group?
Very much so. And I just want to make a distinction. I think the how-to around, like, for instance, how to prompt ChatGPT well, I think that's a very valuable skill to have. So I want to make a distinction. I don't want to make a blanket statement on like, you shouldn't learn anything new. Like you should always be learning, new stuff. And I'm learning every day. I'm learning something new every day, multiple times throughout the day. And I love it. And I love that about the world right now. So for us, we use AI in many ways. In video, we use it to speed up the editing process.
Mhm.
Now I can edit by transcript, whereas you couldn't do that in the past. You had to literally scroll through a video, listen to what's being said, make a cut point, and it just took forever. So now I'm able to just scan a transcript and go, boom, done. My clients, like who we work for, they can make marks in the transcript where they're like, we like this, we like this. And what I can do is I can go where their mark is and I can grab that text and make a new edit from that. So the speed at which we're able to do these things is so much faster. Another thing we use a lot of at SoHo Creative is conversational analysis to understand, and sentiment analysis to understand what's really being said. I believe that the future of, or the near future at least, is about augmentation. How can I augment myself as a human with
Mm.
these particular set of skills with AI to, one, save time by not having to dedicate time to things that the computer can do, and then two, to get me to think outside of my own box, because we all have our own box of thinking. So I use it in those two main ways to do tasks that are tedious that the machine can do faster and better, and then secondly, to analyze conversations, to understand sentiment, and to get me thinking beyond what I'm capable of thinking, because I'm Michael.
Yeah, it's funny or interesting or I guess ironic that the call I had just prior to talking to you, I was talking to a friend that's extremely gifted in technology and AI. Like he's very good at it. And we were talking about, whatever, it was a business challenge. He said, "Well, did you ask Chat GPT?" And I was like, "Yeah, sort of." He's like, "Well, I've actually downloaded every piece of content you've ever done. Let's go ahead and ask the question." And brother, it came back and I was like, "Wow." Because yes, I know myself, but I even omit information. I've forgotten stuff that's happened. That's the amazing thing about this rote memory machine, or it collected, I would say, not every podcast I've done, but every single thing I've ever written on the internet, and it had it all there. And I was like, dude, I forgot about this thing that I wrote. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is bringing me back to, I remember writing this and why that was so impactful, but I forgot about it and I wrote it.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to me.
It's one of the main ways we use it to analyze transcripts and to find common. Look, if I'm analyzing as a human being, if I have to analyze 30 hours of transcripts, it's not going to happen. You have to be, your IQ's got to be 1,000,000, and you've got to have a photographic memory to analyze 30 hours worth of transcripts and to look at common themes. So what we're able to do now is to understand what the common themes are. Like, so we'll do, with our clients who are hiring us to do employer branding, to understand their brand better. I'm able to interview 5 or 6 people for a half hour each. Then I'm able to take those transcripts into, whatever form of AI we're using at that time, and go, what is the number one most common theme amongst these 5 people in regard to working at this organization? What are the top words that are used? How many times were they used? What percentage? So I'm able to go back to a client and go, here is your employer brand. How do I know this? Because your people told us. And then, of course, I can go back through the transcripts and make sure that I am, checking the work and making sure that, like, it's the AI is not hallucinating or making things up, etc. But to analyze large data sets and to understand patterns is one of the main ways that we are leveraging AI tools right now. And I use another tool called Avoma, AVOMA. It's a big tool. It's a little bigger than what I should say, a lot bigger than what we use it for, but it's really used to train sales teams on, how to be a better salesperson. It records calls and it goes, the sentiment was good here, it went bad here. Next call, you should maybe try doing this. But it's really good for me because I analyze all my calls to go, Michael, you were talking 80% of the time. Shut up,
Hmm.
dude. That you let them, like, so I always try to make sure that when I go look at my rating, if you will, that I'm letting the client talk way more than me. And it's a really good, it keeps me accountable as a good listener, and to make sure that, and then also, it analyzes everything. So I walk away with a to-do list. So when I'm doing a client call, everybody's opting in for a recording. Of course, I'm not just recording behind the scenes. Everyone says it's okay. I'm able to go, boom, here are my action items. It's just speeding up the things that I would have to think about. So my brain power can be spent on other things that are more bespoke to Michael, that only Michael can do.
I think there's so much beauty in that, because now you can be so present in the conversation and not be so worried about, oh my gosh, I got to remember this. I'm writing this down. You're still talking, but I'm really not there. It's actually something that I'll give podcasts as an example. I used to write everything down when my guest was talking, and then I'd realize I'm not actually hearing what they're saying. I might grab, like, so far in this conversation, what do you want to embody? I've written down context matters. I wrote that down before we started talking, and I wrote down, what do you want to embody?
Yeah.
Because these are major things that I'm like, oh, dude, that's gold. And I want to get to it. But my point, that what I want people to hear is, it allows you to be present and actually in the conversation, instead of just going, oh my gosh, I got to remember to do this. I'm not actually hearing what he's saying. And now it's such a discombobulated conversation.
If anybody's listening to this and you're not recording your calls, start now. There's Otter, there's Avoma, there's plenty of things. For the reason that you mentioned, JM, I think that is the top reason to use some sort of recording software, because I'm hands-free. I'm totally with you now. Yes, on when I'm hosting and I'm on calls, yes, I take a note or two here and there for things that I just set aside and want to come back to. But I'm able to be so much more fully present, because if I'm taking a long note with you, I'm not listening to you. You want to say you are, but you're not. Yeah, I'm checking out from you. I'm writing something down, and then I'm coming back to you, and I might have missed something awesome. And then also coming in and out of context, it's not good for your brain, and it's not good for a relationship either. And being fully present for people also, like, if you want to stand out, be fully present on those calls in the room. Most people, the one thing I can't stand when I see on a Zoom call, if you're watching a video of this, is this. Like, someone's like on the call, but you see the side of their face because their camera's here and they're like taking notes on another monitor. I'm like, dude, if there's somewhere else, look, you should go wherever that is, because obviously it's more important. So I'm all about leveraging these tools to be fully present. And when I can go look at my call notes, I can see all the things that I have to do that are action items, and I don't have to think about them on the call, kind of thing, because the AI is that good to pick them all out. So I think this idea that you've just laid out here of being fully present, for me, is the number one reason to use a tool like that.
Well, and that, I think, falls right in line with embody. This word, embody. I don't know if I'm attracting it. I'm hearing it all the time.
Ooh.
Both to be in my body, to truly not, like, I'm not calling myself smart, so we're clear, guys, but I become cerebral in that my brain will just go and go and go, and I won't feel the feel. You said the word embody, and then you said courage, grit, and I was like, God, there's that damn word again. It keeps coming up. And so I'm curious, when you say that, man, is this a learned skill? The idea of embodying. And what I mean by that, because I can conceptualize, hey, JM, go have some grit. Be courageous. I can conceptualize and be like, yeah, man, I got that. But when you say that word embody, I'm telling you guys, it keeps coming up. And I'm like, I gotta explore this with you, brother. When you said that, I felt very intentional. It felt like that word meant a lot to you. So what is it about that word? What am I missing?
Well, I don't think you're missing. It doesn't sound like you're missing anything. It sounds like you're really connected to it on multiple levels. I can talk about why it's come up for me in a recent. Okay, so just yesterday, I'm at Northwestern University getting a second master's degree in applied psychology, and I just finished my first theories class, and it was a great class on basically all the major theories in psychology. What were they, how they came about, what they entail. And the class was very challenging because it asked you to not only read about the theory and understand it, but also to apply it. So you had to apply, and you had a client that you were working with from a television show called In Treatment. And the television show is so accurate from a psychological perspective that Northwestern uses the HBO show as a training tool. So the
Wow.
psychologist and the back and forth between his clients and he are so accurate that it's used as a training tool. So what they have you do is you pick this one client, Sophie, throughout the whole semester, and you apply different theories of counseling to her. So if I was doing, psychoanalytic, what would I do with her? If I was doing Adlerian, if I was doing CBT, if I was doing XYZ. And at the end of the semester yesterday, you realize this is a really important point. The number one determining factor if someone's going to get better in a therapeutic relationship is the relationship between that person and the counselor or therapist or psychologist. That is the number one important factor, is how close do they feel? How deep is that relationship? That is the single most determining factor of change, of human behavior change. The second, believe it or not, is the willingness of the person to change. Third is the theory. Like,
Wow.
CBT. Okay, so why am I saying this? What became very clear is that it's far more important what you embody as a therapist. One of my favorite quotes is a photography quote. As a professional photographer for over a decade, this stands to continue my favorite quote. A woman named Eve Arnold, tiny woman. She photographed people like Marilyn Monroe, Malcolm X, documentarian photographer, incredible photographer. This quote is etched into my brain, and she said this: "If the photographer is compassionate, much is given. Therefore, it is the photographer and not the camera that is the instrument." Meaning, if you embody curiosity as a photographer, that is you, the photographer, are the best instrument. The camera, distant second. Lighting, distant second. But if you want to get something compelling from someone, you are the instrument. So the therapist is the instrument. And I think this applies in every area of life. So the question is, an example right now, if I'm embodying curiosity with you, JM, right now, it makes it nearly impossible for me to be judgmental of anything you're saying, right? Because you can only radiate one thing at a time. I can be compassionate or I can be judgmental, but I can't be compassionate and judgmental. And the last point that I'll make is these embodiments come out in the form of actions. They're not thoughts, they're not feelings, they're what we do. So if I'm embodying curiosity with you right now, I'm not waiting for my turn to talk. I'm listening with the intent to understand. I'm taking an idea you've given me and going, tell me more. So I feel like the more we can embody things through our actions in a moment, the better things tend to go. Because at the end of the day, the machines are doing so much, but a machine cannot embody curiosity and compassion and create a meaningful relationship yet. At least it seems like we're getting closer to that, very quickly. But I think one of the things to consider is that I love embodiment because you're able to check in with yourself constantly and ask the question, am I being curious right now? If so, in what way? Okay. Am I being compassionate? Am I embodying curiosity? Okay. Well, how would I do that? Well, I cannot wait for my turn to talk. Am I embodying courage? Well, how do I do that? I move towards what I'm afraid of. I move forward in spite of fear. So embodiments for me are something that you are because you're doing them, because you're acting in the world as a result of wanting to embody this particular quality as a human.
So I never heard the photography example. When you're talking, I was like, oh my God, this is why mom's cooking is so freaking good. Or, you hear people put, why does that taste so good? It's the same ingredients that Bob's doing as grandma was, but grandma's is 100 times better. Well, grandma's literally putting the love into it. That's the relationship, or at least the way I put it. What was fascinating in that, I would have 100% got it wrong. I would have said, no, 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 no. You don't understand, Michael. It's got to be the willingness. I would have got it wrong. I would have said, nope, it's the willingness of the person. That's number one. Then I would have said theory, and then I probably would have said relationship. I would have gone, definitely that order would have been in incorrect. But I think to your point, this is huge in sales. This is huge because it's just energy is what I'm hearing. Like, look, whatever relationship you're in, they're going to move forward based on that far more than whatever product you're selling.
Yes. Pardon my interruption, but what's crazy is I'll buy from you even if your product is not as good because I like you. Because this relationship has meaning. Like, and I know people are say, well, I would never do that. You do it all the time. And to your point, like I have an expression, meaningful relationships mean business. Meaning that if you foster meaningful relationships, this is going to equate to business. Now, if your product absolutely sucks, I'll be like, JM, I really want to work with you, but these guys over here, they're just so much better. Like, what can we do to like, get things going? What are you working on right now that would give me a reason? So of course, in business, it is dollars and cents. And of course, these things matter and we don't just discard them. But at the end of the day, like we lean towards people that we have meaningful relationships with. How do you, let me ask you, in your work, in your experience, how do you feel meaningful relationships come to fore? What does that look like for you? You've done a lot, man. Like, I mean, how many businesses? The third, fourth, something like that?
This is number 4.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, for you, in your experience, what does it look like?
Yeah, I'm be very candid about this. Early on, I wasn't a very good judge of character. Maybe that's wrong. Alignment. That would be the better word. I wasn't a great, and maybe it was because I wasn't clear on exactly what I needed and wanted in this world. Now, the crazy thing, Michael, successful doing it, but it wasn't fulfilling. So to your question, for me, it's all about energy, right? I have a saying, givers gain. I believe it, right? My first thing is to give. And if I receive, that's awesome. Now, problem there is I upset the apple cart. If you only give and give and give and you don't receive, the universe says no. Like, it's going to absolutely just, it's not going to work. So that's something that I've had to really be aware of myself, is to say, look, you have to give, but you also need to be open to receive. So to your point, when I'm aligned with the right people, oh my God, it's amazing what we can create. Just like you and I are talking off air, and I'm like, we got to stop, dude. We have to bring this to the show because we could talk for hours. And that's great for the two of us, but now we're not serving others because it's good, man. So I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, it's just
alignment is so important. Is this aligned? Right? Is this relationship in alignment? And again, back to the context that we were talking about earlier, that alignment context shifts your whole life. And depending upon a business or a personal, or, is this relationship aligned today? 6 months from now, it might not be. Things change. And I think it can be easy to forget that alignment today doesn't guarantee it tomorrow. And it's something that we all have to continue to revisit in our relationships and our relationships, whether they're personal, business, whatever. Things can come out of alignment. There's the opportunity to bring them back into alignment. But then there's also, going, well, this isn't working. I think one of the things, I'm learning about couples therapy is that a lot of therapists don't say what the truth is at the beginning of couples therapy. So if I have a couple coming to me, informed consent states that, hey, I just want you all to know that a result of us working together is that you're not going to be together anymore. Have you considered that? Have you considered this attempt to save your marriage in couples therapy is going to result in divorce when we're done with our work here? And you're both going to go, or one of you is going to go, you know what? I don't want to be in this anymore. So I think it's easy to ignore that. It's easy to forget that alignment is an ever moving target, and it's something that needs to be revisited frequently, because I bet maybe some of the relationships from 10 years ago for you would be completely misaligned right now in business or whatever.
I think that's a hard truth for people, brother. And I'll even speak for myself. My wife and I candidly talk about this. Some relationship in the moment, like I say, people come in for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. That's kind of how it's felt in life. It doesn't mean that it's bad, by the way. It just means that, to your point, your alignment shifted. You want something different in this world, and it doesn't make you right and them wrong. That is the biggest thing I hope people understand is it's okay. Give yourself that grace that, you know what? I was super close with my cousin, and you know what? We don't see eye to eye anymore. It doesn't make you good, doesn't make him or her bad. It just is the way it is. I'm curious, brother, with all that you've been doing, the Performance Edge podcast, the SoHo Creative Studio, you go back and get a second master's just because, oh, I don't know, I have a bunch of free time on my hands. I guess I'll go do that. What really what was the reason for me to say, gosh, Michael needs to go get more of this education from a very prestigious university, by the way?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but first I just want to touch on a word you use, which is grace. And I think it's not an oft-used word nowadays. And I think it's such an important word. And for me, what grace means is you're taking action and letting go at the same time. And you can see this in dancers and performers and great athletes. And you can see it clearly because it's an intense situation. An actor on stage or on camera. I love the French Open. I'm watching a tennis player on the court. These are hyper intense, concentrated situations where they have to take action but let go at the same time. And I think we could take a page out of that book in our day-to-day lives. And in that wonderful point you just made about relationships, where it's taking action and embodying things, but at the same time letting go to a certain extent and not holding on. I have forgive the expression, the water weenie theory of love. And I don't know if you remember, like, the water weenies, like they look like phallic objects, and they're like water balloons. And we had them when I was a kid. And if you squeeze them, they go flying out of your hand. That's what they're designed to do. So for me, I'm like, that's love. If you just let it rest there, it's going to hang out a long time. But as soon as you clamp down on it, it's going to go flying. And I think that is a cool analogy for love, for relationships. And I think it's also important for us to think about grace in our day. Am I being graceful? Well, what does it mean to be graceful? It means to take action and let go at the same time. Like you said, this is not easy to do. This is hard. And it's a hard truth to go, this relationship doesn't serve me anymore. And it's going to come to an end in the iteration that it was before. It's not easy, especially if both parties are not in agreement that this thing should, especially if it's a unilateral decision and one person wants to stay in and one person wants to leave. So I think I love that you use the word grace. And I think it's a word that we all could stand to embrace a little bit more of in our lives.
You used a word that I've said many, many times inside of a company, but you just said it inside of a relationship. And I'm like, holy shit, iteration. And it is an ebb and flow. It is dancing. So my wife and I are going to hit 20 years of marriage. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And holy iterations. But I've never thought of it that way, because you just think, well, we got married at 27 years old, and now at 47, it's a 20-year marriage. There have been so many iterations, and people are changing. And people might be listening and being like, no kidding, JM. But I'm telling you, it was like a light bulb moment went off when you said that. And I was like, that is so fascinating. So, man, I could say a word to you, and I've never done this before, but I want to throw out a word, a couple of them, and just see where your brain goes with your background. I'm going to say vulnerability.
Essential for a relationship. And so, tying back to the master's degree I'm doing now, my first master's is in acting. And one of the things I talk a lot about is vulnerability. I don't always use that word. I use a clear point of view in your behavior, letting people see how you feel. So my communication technique, which is a combination of actor tricks and strategic communication techniques, for lack of a better word, you have to be predictable in structure, unpredictable in delivery, with a clear point of view in your behavior, or vulnerability. So I feel like vulnerability is something that is essential if you're going to connect meaningfully and really move people. Like, you have to let people see how you feel. And you know what? When you're doing it, when you're allowing it to come through and you're allowing yourself to be seen in that way, people respond to that in such a magical way. So, but it requires that you let go of control. It requires of you let go of how you look. It requires of you going, I don't know. I'm no longer in control. There's a really wonderful exercise that I learned from a mentor, my acting teacher, Kelly Kimball, who's no longer with us. It's called the 1 minute. It is truly an exercise in vulnerability. So what happens is you go up in front of a room, in an acting space. You go up in front of an audience, and you're there alone on stage, and there's a bunch of people in front of you. You will get fed a line. Okay. So if I said the line for you right now, JM, don't say who. If I said the line for you, I want you to know. If you were going to say, I want you to know, somebody comes to mind, don't they? Don't say who, it's personal, right? Yeah, right? So the job of this exercise is to take the line. Someone's going to come up for you, whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not. Someone's going to come up for you in your life, either real or imaginary. Then your job is to put them on the wall, on the head, over the heads of the audience. Start with, I want you to know, and just talk unedited for 1 minute, completely out of control. Not editing anything you say. Nothing. That is vulnerability in real time. Now, here's the crazy part about this, the magical part about this. The more personal, the more universal. The more personal, the more universal. And I have watched many of my fellow actor friends divulge the most, quote, I'm putting it quotes because it's not shameful, but the average person would, or, a regular human who's not understanding this technique would be like, wow, that's really like, oof, that's the most shameful, horrible stuff comes out of someone's mouth. And for those of you watching the video right now, this is all you see from the audience.
Yeah.
Nodding yes. Yep. Saying, yep, same. Me too. Totally get it. Felt that before. Thought that before. And if you're, courageous enough to admit it, you go, yep, same. For the and it's beautiful because what happens is through vulnerability, you give one of the greatest gifts to another human being that you could ever give them. You let them know that they're not alone. And that person stands up there and says, I fucking hate myself. I hate myself every day. I hate how I look. I hate my body. I hate how I think about myself. And everybody's going, yep, same, feel that, yep. And then that person up there, and then those people in the audience go, holy shit, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Someone else feels this, thinks this, did this shameful thing, this horrible thing that no one would want to admit. So, that's a long answer to your short question of one word, vulnerability. I think it connects us in a way that allows us human beings to realize that we are not alone in this world, in our thoughts, in our feelings, and in our actions.
Well, I've never done that exercise, but I imagine afterwards the bonding amongst this group of folks that you're doing an exercise for acting, and immediately, because it's relatively raw and unfiltered, I would imagine, because when you asked me that question, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but I was like, holy shit, you're going to bond with people because it's just powerful. Is that true? I mean, immediately people are hugging and crying and all sorts of stuff.
100%. And what happens is you take a bunch of strangers, and in 1 minute, they're together. 1 minute, they're relating to each other. Why? Because of vulnerability. That's the only reason why. It's because someone was willing to go up there, to go out on the edge, to be seen, survive it, and come back. And like, whoa. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. People are so interconnected. And then, someone comes up to you after, or you go up to someone, you're like, hey, thank you. Like, thank you so much. And what they're really saying is, thank you for making me feel not alone. Yeah. In this feeling, in this thing that I thought only I felt, in this thing that I thought only I did, or only I thought, but it's like, oh shit, somebody else feels this too. And it's magical. But the cost of entry is to let go of control and not edit what you're saying. And it's really magical because when you're doing it, you're just about a step ahead of your internal editor. And you know you're in the right space because you're talking a little bit fast. You don't have to talk really fast like this, but you're talking just a step ahead of that internal, should I say this? Should I not say it? And you're ahead of that. And what usually happens is you get to the end, you don't remember much. And you're like, I don't even know. And you see a room full of people crying and you're like, what happened? Like, you're like, what did I even say? I don't really remember much of what I said because I wasn't editing, because it was coming from a place that was so raw and real. That's where them, and that's what actors do. Now, actors have to do that with lines. They have to create the illusion that these lines are they're speaking them in this moment for the first time. Even if they're on Broadway doing 8 shows a week, they got to convince that audience that that is the first time they said that line because of what was going on in that moment. It's really, really hard. It's hard to do that.
I want you to know, just guys, I want you guys to go try this because I want to do it. Now, I'm not saying go to your corporate setting and say, here's the exercise we're going to do. Let's be clear. I would test this out with a group of people that you trust first. That's just suggestion. I don't know your thoughts, Michael, on it.
Do them alone. Do it alone. Listen, after we wrap here, I will send you the list of prompts, the 1-minute prompts. Okay. Cool. What you can do is do one a day to yourself, to a camera, in your shower alone. I would not recommend taking it to an organization. This is something you have to be trained up on. It's very sensitive work. Like, I get to do the work because I've done it 2 decades now. Like, I learned from masters. So I would say keep it personal, keep it to yourself. But you can do them on your own. And Kelly would say that if you do 1 minute a day, at the end of a month, you'll be a better actor. And I think if you do 1 minute a day, at the end of a month, you'll be a better person and a better communicator. For
I love
sure. It. Just do it in the shower in the morning. Like, say it to the shower wall, or in your bedroom, or on a walk.
Well, I imagine it's incredibly therapeutic because, again, even as you said it, what I said in my head, I was like, wow, didn't know that was coming out. Gosh, time is flying by. I have to ask you this. I will be irritated with myself if I don't. Your communication skills, both verbally but also physically. Hopefully, if you guys are watching YouTube, you see he does a great job with facial expressions. This is something that I know I need. My wife's always like, smile more. And it's funny. I watch you. I don't know if it's intentional or it's just you, but you'll come back and you have this great smile, and but it's powerful. And I'm not. It's just something that I need to be more intentional about. But I watch you do it so seamlessly. Maybe it's years of acting. I don't know, but I'm gonna just say the communication skills, both from a nonverbal standpoint, are extremely powerful. Is that something you've worked on and honed over the years? Is it something intentional, or is it just you being you?
Well, I mean, I have 7 years of intense actor training, 3 years of hyper intense actor training from some of the best teachers that ever lived. So that's part of it. I got to be around some of the most talented actors, one of which was just at the Oscars, having been nominated for an Oscar. Another has been nominated for Emmys. These are really talented people that I got to be around. So that had an effect. My teachers. I've been doing this for 20 years now, being obsessed with communication and connection and how does this happen well and what can you do? But I think above all, JM, I believe that my purpose, if you will, is to inspire the best in others to come out and play. Like that's my life purpose. Now I do it in different modalities all the time, right? And I think the reason why I believe this and why it's important is that I know that we are our truest and best selves when we're at play. When we're being playful, this is when our best comes out. So for me, I always have to remind myself to allow myself to be playful and to be seen. Now, I'm a flailer, right? If you see me on camera, so for a tight close up, I'm the one who has to scale it back. Kelly, going back to Kelly Kimball, she said, there's 2 kinds of people. There are reds and there are blues. So I'm a red, meaning I'm all over the place, right? So when I get on camera, I have to take it down a notch. There are blues, and you might be a blue, where it's you have to kick it up a notch. But I think, for me is that visible enthusiasm is so important to me. And I can't encourage people to be visibly enthusiastic if I'm not. I can't encourage people to be vulnerable if I'm not. And for me, it's like, I also want to let you know how I feel. And I let you know how I feel in my behavior. And I'll say, the acting technique that I was taught was a very specific technique called the Meisner technique. A guy named Sanford Meisner, you can look him up. He's one of these people who developed his own technique. And his thing was, acting isn't about words. Acting is about behavior. If acting was about words, Charlie Chaplin would have been an idiot. Charlie Chaplin, the silent film actor, if you all don't know him, he didn't speak a word, but you knew exactly how he felt at any given point because he wasn't even talking. But you can look at his behavior and know that he was happy, mad, sad, glad, scared, whatever it was. So for me, I just think it's important to let people see how you feel and not be afraid of that. And I understand where the fear comes from. But again, I've been doing it so long in such intense ways. And I'll also say one more thing. I've suffered, I don't really anymore, but a good part of my life I suffered from anxiety, just generalized anxiety disorder. And I won't go into the whole story because I know we're out of time. But this has been something that I have had to push against for decades to be literally my body going, you're going to die right now. About 5 minutes from now, you're going to die. And then my mind going, you're going to die 5 minutes from now. And then having to move forward in spite of my body and my brain going, you're going to die. You're legit going to die, like within minutes, and have to go outside of my house in spite of that was a gift now that I'm not suffering, was a gift in hindsight, because I always had something to push against. And it was never easy for me to connect with folks or to get on stage or to get, hey, I have generalized anxiety disorder. What career should I choose? Oh, let me go to acting.
Seriously, man. I mean, talk about challenging yourself. My goodness.
Yeah.
Dude, I could talk to you all day, but
same, brother.
In 1 minute, what didn't I know enough to ask you? Just something that you're like, gosh, dang it, Jam. I got to make sure and share this because you're a very intelligent guy. I could ask you questions for days, but I know there's something I should have asked you, and I didn't get a chance to.
Well, I'm thinking about the audience and who might hear this. If there's something that I would want to impart that I'm learning, is that I think one of the most predominant factors in whether you're going to move towards a fulfilling life, as you said, the difference between being fulfilled and unfulfilled, Jam, the difference between moving towards that or away from that is your ability to take action before you feel like it, or even when you especially do not feel like it. And I think the more consistently we can act before we're feeling it, this is something that's very special. And everything I do has a parallel to the craft of acting. Acting is really like my religion. On set, it's, they say set, lights, camera, and think about it, and pause for a second and get stuck in your head and think about, action. And I'll leave you with this. There is, if you haven't seen a film called The Verdict with Paul Newman, it's a beautiful, beautiful film. And he plays an ambulance chasing alcoholic lawyer. And he gets handed a case that's supposed to be an easy case. And it has not only my favorite photography scene in any movie, but also one of my favorite speeches in any movie. And he's giving his summation to the jury at the end. And he makes this parallel. And he says to the jury, in my religion, they say, act as if ye had faith and faith will be given to you. And he says, in order to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves and then act with justice. So for me, I think one of the things that I'd really love to impart is you don't have to feel it first. Us human beings have this really unique capability to take action and not feel like taking action. And then the really cool part about it is the feeling comes after. The feeling will come. Go to the gym, get on the darn treadmill, start walking. I can almost guarantee anybody that has done that, you probably leave the gym like, I'm glad I did that. I don't know anybody, it's myself, just speaking myself. I don't think I've ever gone to the gym when I didn't want to and then left and been like, man, I wish I would have stayed home. I'm like, no, I'm so glad I did that. So I would say act. Well, I don't know what the next step is. Do something. Do anything. Make a call, send the email, ask a question, walk up to somebody. Just do something. Like, it's better than nothing. So yeah, act before you're ready. I think that's the thing that I definitely want to share.
I love it. I love it, brother. I literally, that's kind of, for me, it's one of those things I hope everybody does hear this. Now, most of the audience, they are proactive and they do act. But I'll tell you what, all of us at some point have felt anxiety, have felt like not moving. And I love that. I think it's so key.
I'll say
Brother,
one
go
more
ahead,
thing
please.
before. So,
And just also just tell us, where to find you, brother. Because
sure.
again, we didn't talk anything about, what you're doing and all that, but I would love for people to check you out and see what you're doing.
I would say for the taking action, make sure at least a percentage of that is uncomfortable. Because if the action you're taking is not uncomfortable, you're just going to be in the same pattern for the rest of your life. So we change by going, okay, you don't get stronger by doing 10 reps on the same weight for your whole life. It's just the same for everything. So I would say action is great, but make sure at least a percentage of it, or a small percentage of it, is action that you don't feel like taking, that is outside of your comfort zone. That is how the needle gets moved. And the bad news is that never changes. so how to find me? Yeah, Michael Cinquino across the board. I'm active on Instagram. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me in both of those places. SoHoCreativeStudio.com is where, if you want to work with my company, you can start to learn about us there. We do two things. We do thought leadership content creation for folks that are subject matter experts, over a platform like this. And then I also do communication workshops. I go to colleges. I do them in corporate settings. We've brought them all over the place. So if you have a team or a group of people that wants to communicate or learn a technique to communicate that's repeatable every day, that's going to help them be more confident, clear, and compelling communicators, I can bring that to wherever you are. And I call it the actor's approach to compelling communication, because it's learning this craft as an actor, but at the same time, a strategic communication framework that works well in business. So, dude, it's always wonderful to speak to you, man. I know I feel like both of us, we have to kind of rope things in, because it could be 6 hours from now. So thanks for keeping us on track. It's great to see you again, Jam. Thanks for having me on the show, man. Oop, I think I lost my internet.
Oh, lost you. No, I lost you just for a second there.
Check.
You were just basically at the end of thanking is the last part I heard.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I saw my internet dropped out. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to connect with you and great to see you.
Brother, same. This was awesome. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. From context that matters to just that, when he talked about vulnerability, I asked him one word. I said one word, and his answer, I was just like, I was blown away by his ability to just take a concept and apply it to a story and make it something that we can use in our everyday life. And then when he talked about the relationship, then willingness, and then theory, that was how it went inside of people moving with their therapist. That's how it moves literally in sales. That's what I was talking about in the intro. If you get that relationship right, that's when the willingness of that person, and then whatever product you're bringing to the table, that comes last. I love talking to the guy. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And I'm so glad that you guys had a chance to hear from him. Do me a favor, share this with someone that you love and care about, somebody that could use an uplift, because we all can. And that's ultimately what Michael did for me. I hope he did the same for you. So make sure to share this out with someone you know, love, and care about, and make sure to subscribe to both the podcast and the YouTube channel for Let's Go Win. Until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate all you guys. We'll talk soon.